Hey there, welcome back to Vivid Practice. I'm Nicola Canton, and today's app spotlight is on ForScore. That's ForScore. ForScore. Now, this app is a score reading app, as you may have guessed. You might have heard of it before. You might have a score reading app that you prefer, and I think it's probably also fine. This is the one that I've found to be my favorite, but there are kind of different categories of score apps out there. Different ones may suit different needs. So there are apps out there like Tomplay and SuperScore, which are a little bit different because they're about loading up music, sheet music, and having it follow through. ForScore is basically a place to store PDFs that is designed for musicians. So it has some great little tools and features that are great for musicians, but at its core, it's just a place to store your PDFs in an organized way and flip through the pages in them, right? So that sounds incredibly simple, and it is. And you could use just a generic PDF app, one that is free, included on your device. The benefits of using a musician-specific one: you're going to have annotation features that are designed in a way that's helpful for musicians. So ForScore has great little pens and highlighters and stuff like that for putting in finger numbers and marking things and doing things like that. It also has a metronome. It can also record. I don't use those features as much because I prefer, the way I have that set up with other things, but that is something you can do for your practice, or students can do in their practice. It's also the way the pages flip, I feel, makes a lot of sense for when you're flipping them while playing. Okay, so it is designed for musicians who are playing stuff and they need to flip through their music. So obviously you flip by tapping one side of the screen or tapping the other side to go back, and tapping different parts of the screen. And there's a good kind of visual map that they have to show you like your tapping zones. The flipping forward and back, it feels intuitive to me at least. But the other thing it has is it has an inbuilt connection to Bluetooth pedal turners. So if you want to use a pedal, little device that you put on the floor to flip through the pages with your foot, you can do that as well. Like a page flip or an air turn or one of those, they connect right within ForScore as well. So that is really handy. Now, how do I use it in lessons? As I say, you could use this score reading app, or you could use a different one that's sort of similar. But I use it a lot for my own copies of students' music, and I also use it for flashcards. So this is the Minterval challenge. I flip through the intervals for students on my iPad rather than using physical flashcards anymore. So the Minterval challenge, if you're not familiar, that is our interval challenge that we run. It's one of the many challenges on our challenge board. So you can look up Colourful Keys challenge board if you're curious about that. It's one of the many challenges we have, and it's one that we use with pretty much every student. So students have a certain number of flashcards per level. There's a bronze, a silver, and a gold level. There's more flashcards in the later levels. They have a certain number of flashcards that they have to get through. All they have to do is name the interval. There's no clef, so it's not a specific note, it's just an interval. They need to say third, for example, and play any third on the piano, because we're isolating intervals versus notes, right? They're different items. So there's that, and then our 60-second challenge is for note naming, more typical flashcard challenge, right? For naming notes on the staff. That obviously has clefs. And so students have to name and play the note in the 60-second or the interval in the Minterval challenge. Do all of them as quickly as they can. And if they get it under a minute for 3 lessons in a row, then they've passed that challenge. Okay, so that's how that challenge works. Now, I've been doing this for years and years and years. Before I even had an iPad, maybe? Definitely a long time anyway. So I used to use physical flashcards, and we still have those available in the Vibrant Music Teaching Library for those that prefer that. And I sometimes give them to students if they want to practice at home as well. But I've come to prefer using the iPad to flip through the flashcards. Or if I'm not in my current teaching room, if it's in a different space, sometimes it's easier to have a screen and flip through them from a computer. Either way, not having to hold up the flashcards at like an awkward angle so that I get in front of the student and flipping through them as efficiently as I can and getting kind of nervous if a page gets stuck, because then I'm holding up the student and that's stressful. It's not genuine stress, obviously, but it is like a fraught situation where I have to flip through these cards and it's on me to turn them on time. It's much easier to turn the pages on an iPad, obviously. And it's also much more comfortable because I can put the iPad on the stand. The student isn't leaning one way or the other to see. It's directly in front of them. And I can just stand beside the piano and tap the screen to move to the next one when they get it right. That is how I use ForScore the most, honestly, because that comes up in lots of lessons with students who are doing various challenges. But I also use it for storing all my teacher copies of sheet music that I have a digital version of. It's great for if I have my intermediate, advanced students and they have big long pieces and they have a copy of it on the stand. I can't be sure I'm going to get every note correct just by ear because there's a lot going on. And so I want to be able to look at the score, but I don't want to be peering over their shoulder, standing behind them, hovering at the piano. So if I have it on the iPad, I can be sitting at the other piano, sitting on the other side of the room, whenever I need to be. I can also have it up on the iPad, sit down at the other piano and play in unison with them so that they can correct some wrong notes, different things like that. And so it's great to just have a teacher copy without having tons of individual sheets that I have in a binder or something like that. It's much easier to have them all on the iPad. It also means if my student is then online, I still have it and I can pull it up on screen, different things like that. So that's a bit about how I use ForScore. As I say, there are other score reading apps and other PDF apps out there, and you can use whichever one happens to suit you. This has just been my favorite to use. Feels the most intuitive and simple in many ways, but it also has a lot of powerful features.